Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to yet again another fantastic episode of Keeping It Geekly. We're here with our returning guest, Christof. We're here to break down Rick and Morty issue 2 finals week. That's insane. And your own personal IP, Requiem issue 2. Had you on the show last time for issue 1, so we're excited to catch up about that as well. Yeah. Dude, man, we were just talking backstage about unlocking that passion, and we were talking a little bit earlier too, off the air, of just like people really don't see the steps that it takes for you to get where you're at, but like where you're at right now is remarkable, Christof. Like, congratulations, dude. Like, how's it feel?
Very, very kind. Thank you. I so appreciate it. Yeah, I think particularly like in publishing as well, there's such a delay between talking about the project and as a writer writing the script and then it actually being produced and coming out. You know, I mean, with Rick and Morty, it was actually, compared to other comics projects, super quick because it's licensed, which tend to have a quicker turnaround. And also the artist on Irish Beck is amazing, and they are a spin machine. They're insanely fast. So it's actually been pretty fast. But in terms of, I think, you know, prior to actually getting started on the issue, I was talking with Oni about it for a while. So it's just, yeah, it's kind of floats around and is this nebulous thing, and then suddenly the word gets out and it's out, and it feels very surreal for it to be like real and to be able to talk about it.
Like, so were you like a consumer of Rick and Morty beforehand, or?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think, you know, I think with IPs, I think it definitely helps if you have a connection with it. I know that there are, you know, I think you could definitely dive into a new IP and smash it out of the park. But it just means you have to do the extra work before you start writing, read through or watch the IP and connect with it. So I'm very lucky that like I'm a white guy who likes edgy humor, so I've been watching Rick and Morty from the beginning. But like, yeah, and I remember the magic, particularly of like the first season when it was just like, what is this? You know, and I still watch now. So that was very much, you know, I've very much been a big part of my life for a long time in terms of just enjoying it, enjoying the different directions the show goes, particularly now. You know, ever since kind of season 3, it's been more and more, you've seen more and more Dan Harmon there, and Dan Harmon is kind of a writer's, I mean, he's a popular guy in terms of, you know, Community's huge, as is Rick and Morty, a lot of stuff he's done. But he's a little bit of a writer's writer in the sense that he's obsessed with Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey, and as a lot of people would know, he's created his own writing tool called the Dan Harmon Story Circle, which is based both off 3-act structure and the hero's journey. So as a writer, I've always really respected how he approaches craft. And I use, like, my go-to story breaking method is the Dan Harmon Story Circle. So the same, you know, tool they use in the Rick and Morty Writers Room, I use on all my stories, including my issue of finals week. Yeah, so I felt a huge attachment to the franchise.
So how was it? I mean, was there a lot of weight like on your shoulders when you first started this script? I'm also curious, like, how hard was it to translate the mannerisms of like, you know, Rick and Morty, like from their animation to a comic?
Totally. So there's I've got a ton of thoughts on that. The first is, I think, because, you know, this is my first kind of IP work, I'd pitched for IP stuff in the past, but a big mistake that I made was trying to kind of, you know, I think often when we think about like our favorite superhero work or our favorite IP work, a lot of the time it's when like a big writer comes in and takes their very unique take. Like, you know, I like my favorite, you know, take on like Hawkeye is Matt Fractions, and that's such a specific take. Same with like his take on Iron Man. But with his Hawkeye take in particular, right, a newer or emerging writer probably couldn't have pitched that to Marvel. Matt Fraction could do it because he was Matt Fraction. So for me, starting out with IP, I tried, I think, to go too strong on a kind of an alternative angle and bring myself into it. So with Rick and Morty, there's plenty of me in it, but I got the advice of like, just write Rick and Morty, write the characters, write, you know, I've honed in what I like about the series, but I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel in terms of like all the characters, they're very much the characters, you know, and so really tried to kind of lean into really, as I wrote the script, kind of play it in my head as if it was an episode, and be like, what would happen? Like, what would this character say next? How would that character react? And the wonderful thing about the Rick and Morty characters is they're all very strong in who they are and have really strong reactions. And the other thing that makes them like pretty easy to write is all the characters are super petty. And writing petty characters is really, at least I find it really easy, because it's really easy to create like obstacles when a character's petty, because half the time they're the obstacle, you know, their ego, or they don't want to accept something, or they're ignoring advice. So, you know, I think well-balanced characters, you know, and powerful characters are a lot harder to write than like just, well, obviously Rick is, you know, a kind of like a powerful character, but he's so petty that it makes him very easy to write, because whenever you want to give him an obstacle, you just put his ego in the way. Oh, sorry, you go, Cody.
Oh, I was gonna say, they have the most like brilliant idea with just continuations of the series, because you have so many different multiverses and universes they can just teleport to. I forgot which Morty it was in particular, the number, but the evil one, like how they're looking for it, and like how convoluted that story is. Like, I was listening to some deep dive where they were talking about how like from like season 2 or 3, like it could be a completely different Rick than like we even thought it was, like in season 1, and like how like we don't know exactly which Rick is Rick unless like, you know, like you deep dive it and like really study like what is happening. And I just love that concept, because that just gives you so much room to play. With that being said, like 100%. with the cast that you were able to write, and I don't want to spoil anything, so we don't have to. But
no, we can definitely like everything we get, you know, the stuff I've sent you is all out on the internet, so we can, you know, like, there's quite a bit I can talk about.
So, I mean, I guess like just like the characters you were able to play with, like what seasons would you kind of like say they were more like most like relate to? Like, because each character is a little bit different, right? Like Beth, like we have the one Beth who was like wanted by the Galactic Federation, and then just like typical housewife, you know, wife, and same thing with Summer, right? Like some of her storylines get a little bit hectic and crazy too.
Yeah. I mean, Summer in particular is a great character, because I think in a lot of ways she is kind of the most well balanced of the family, but then you have that juxtaposed with the fact that she's a teenage girl, and being a teenager, and particularly a teenage girl, is like a terrifying on edge experience where you're kind of always grasping for status, which kind of makes her, you know, like easy to write. But in terms of, I think, where they are character wise, I mean, you know, with at least my kind of take on doing the comic and just kind of writing Rick and Morty is I didn't want to bring anything too big into it. I just kind of wanted to focus on the core family and who they are. So I feel like it could kind of fit within any of the seasons, but it certainly doesn't deliberately reference stuff from the later season. You know, these are just kind of the characters at the core of who they are.
So is this storyline going to kind of be in continuity, like with the entire Rick and Morty franchise, or is it going to be a little bit of its own thing?
Yeah, so, I mean, my understanding, and I could be wrong here, but the comics are their own thing. I mean, obviously, we've got to kind of run them past Warner Brothers, so we you know, they exist in line with the show in terms of, like, I guess, side stories. And it's, you know, I don't believe anything has happened in the comics that has influenced the TV show, right? So that we kind of know that, you know, in the comics, we're playing in our own space. But in terms of like where, at least from my, you know, we were able to reference everything we wanted. I was able to, you know, use everything I wanted to from the show. And there's, you know, some recurring characters and stuff that come. So we got a lot of freedom in terms of what we were able to do. You know, my editor, Only the Wonderful Bess, came to me basically with a rough idea of what they wanted. And I had a lot of room to just bounce off that and grow that idea out.
So what, I mean, if you're allowed to talk about it, were like the no-nos of doing this? Like, did they have any hard, like, you know, like this is something you cannot do? Like, I guess like more or less like the what they didn't want you to do, or part of the Bible they didn't want you to break.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially with like licensed comics, I think a lot of it has to do with, again, like just write the characters, right? So I was definitely just writing the characters. I think if I was trying to maybe reinvent the wheel or push the characters too much of how outside they are, that you know, that there could have been issues, but they were super easy to work with. You know, the main cool. There were no specific pitfalls or things that we were warned away from outside of things that are are regular to all IP. So making sure characters are a model, but all IP has that. That's not unique to Rick and Morty. And then obviously making sure not to infringe on other copyright. And that's those two things are across the board standard. Particularly in comics, you're just kind of limited to what you can reference. It's the whole Simpson thing, right? Where they don't have McDonald's, they have Krusty Burger because they're limited in what they can say about McDonald's, but they can say whatever they want about Krusty Burger, even though it's obviously a standard for McDonald's. So that was that's pretty regular across the board. You do hear stories about people working on other IPs and stuff, and there being really strict guidelines and them being really restricted in what they can do. But that's not, more often than not, they just want to make sure that you're writing the characters look like the characters, and that you're not messing with anyone's IP that could get them sued, copyright stuff that could get them sued.
I forgot Mickey Mouse is up for grabs, right? Steamboat Mickey Mouse?
100%. Yeah, so specifically Steamboat Willie Mickey. I don't know if you watched Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, but they've got a costume now, and they could consistently bring on the character of Steamboat Willie because he's public domain. And Disney can't do anything.
That's then they're seething too. They're just like So
totally.
But let's kind of wrap it up on this because I would love to get to your own personal IP as well. But with Rick and Morty Finals Week, where does your story fit into just the timeline of the comic? Where are we at in that universe?
Yeah, so Finals Week, I loved the idea. So that was, Oni basically came to me and were like, we have this idea for, so for those people who've been following Rick and Morty comics, know that there's the mainline series, and then they do sort of the Rick and Morty presents spin-offs. So Finals Week is really kind of a really cool middle ground. So it's made up of 5 one-shots that are coming out every 2 months. So the first one is in Feb, written by the amazing Daniel Kibble-Smith, who of course wrote on, he was a writer on Colbert for ages. Not Colbert, sorry. The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. And then also on Inside Job on Netflix.
Wow.
So he's written the first one, which I believe is already out or is coming out this month in Feb. And then mine is out April 17, and the next 2 months is issue 3, and then so on. So it's coming out throughout the year. And basically, the idea of Finals Week is it's the worst week of Morty's life. It's his finals week at school, and each issue corresponds with a finals exam he has to do. But obviously, instead of getting to study for it, he gets dragged off on some crazy adventure.
Oh,
that's kind of the connective tissue between his issues. So each one shot is a complete story that is its own thing. So the first one that Daniel's doing is a riff on Sherlock Holmes. And then my issue 2, is called Brawl Her, and it's a beat 'em up starring Beth and Summer. That involves the whole family getting sucked into a video game.
Oh, that's so cool, man.
It was very fun, yeah. So each one is kind of riffing on different things, and the one after mine, Wrath of Beth, I believe it's called, is completely different again. So each one is kind of its own thing, riffing, but there is a connective tissue bringing all these stories together. So I think,
cool.
Yeah, and I really love that they're doing it every 2 months in terms of you have enough time kind of to enjoy the issue, chill for a bit, and then you get the next bit. So I think it's really smart. I really love this kind of hybrid, kind of ongoing series, kind of limited event, and I think it's going to be really big and really, it's super exciting.
And tell everyone how they can go about getting this. I'm going to be dropping the pre-order code in chat right now, so everyone watching, be sure to check that out and share it around if you can. Sharing is free.
Yeah. So if you're new to ordering single issues, previous stuff I've done has been graphic novels, which are a little bit easier to kind of communicate to people how to pre-order because they can do that through a bookstore. So it's because this is a single issue comic, you need to do it through your local comic book store. So you give them you can either just go and ask them for, hey, I want to pre-order Rick and Morty Finals Week issue 2, or if you can, please do the whole series. It's going to be fantastic. Or you can give them the specific code, which Cody's going to put in the in the episode description. that you can then say, hey, I want to order this issue. Here's the pre-order code. But yeah, so find your local comic shop and let them know you want a copy.
And for anyone that is listening and you are stubborn and you don't want to look at the description code, it's going to be Rick and Morty Feb 241600. So hit up your local comic book shop, make it happen, and support them too. Local comic book shops need your help. Go there, pre-order books there, buy books there, buy this 100%. Book. Speaking of books, let's move on over to Requiem issue number 2, currently doing a pre-launch on Kickstarter. We are at 78 followers, trying to hit 100, guys. So here's another link for you to hit, and make sure you share it.
So we're launching next Tuesday. So we're hoping to hit 100 before then.
So right there's the link. Hit that up, put it on Twitter, share it around, put it on Facebook, anywhere you can with a link. Let's make this dream happen. So give us the spin. What is your elevator pitch for Requiem as just a whole?
Yeah, so I pitch it as like Alien meets Memento. So it's, claustrophobic sci-fi horror about this crew on a spaceship, and basically they have to continually keep wiping their long-term memory, and they don't know why, but they know that if they let their long-term memory manifest for too long, something really bad will happen. And basically, surprise, surprise, it's a horror story. What happens is that they find a ship that looks identical to theirs with the crew all slaughtered but one person. And that begins to kind of jog their long-term memory, and shit goes sideways.
I love adventures in space. Like Dead Space is like one of my favorite games of all time.
I was about to say huge. Yeah, when we were developing it with our amazing artist and co-creator Phil, me and writer David Hazan, a lot of the inspiration was like the USG Ishimura from Dead Space and Isaac's suit from Dead Space. I mean, that to me, like when I describe it to people, like Dead Space is the first kind of thing that comes to mind. I think Dead Space is just fucking. I played the remake for the first time.
Oh, so good!
And it was one of the most incredible gaming experiences.
It was better than the first one because it like you didn't have to do the endless like whatever you're on the trans system and you have to do the chapter reloads. It's one continue. I have like a Dead Space sleeve going on. Like I have the necromorph there, a spitter. I have the red marker right here. That's right.
The marker concept is so like the mix of like hard sci-fi and then the cosmic kind of horror elements. I think it's just it's just wonderful.
What happens in issue 1? I mean, we already have issue 1 out there. And you can kind of like save spoilers if you'd want to. But where are we at so far in the story?
Totally. So what I'll do is I'll start by talking about what kind of the non-spoiler stuff, and then I'll spoil the end of issue 1 for people who might already be familiar with it. But so the beginning opens with the crew of the Genesis, which is the ship we follow. They find their sister ship, the Exodus. Basically, it's a bloodbath. Everyone's slaughtered. But they find one person alive, and that person is Raina, and she's having her memory wiped. So they find her just as she's had her memory wiped. So she has no memory of what's just gone on. They take her to their ship, and that's kind of, things start to kick off. And just to go into spoiler territory. So if you haven't read the first issue, this is a spoiler. It won't spoil the whole series, but it will kind of spoil the end of the first issue. But one of our crewmates, Callie, is murdered, and her blood scrawls out the words, Edith, remember her. And that kind of really kicks us off into the main story of, who killed her? Why did they kill her? The obvious suspect is Raina, because she's, just been brought onto the ship. But issue 2 really begins to deal with the aftermath of Callie's death and what is going on.
I love it. I had the opportunity to read a couple pages of issue 2, and first and foremost, thank you for that opportunity. But I love where you're going with this. It's so good. And then you all watching right now have the special opportunity. We actually have a first exclusive look at a cover for issue 2.
So wanted to give you the exclusive, which is, so we've released the standard cover, but the one we're going to show you is the Shane Connery Vault cover. So he did a really amazing cover for Requiem 1. He also works with my co-writer David Hazan on Nottingham. So we're gonna be getting him to do covers for the whole series. So his cover for 2 is incredible. He's just an amazing artist, and it's just we adore his covers. So we're really excited to have him on board again.
What does that collaborative process look like with you and David when you're working the script and the dialogue? Do you kind of have someone take the wheel a little bit more here and there, or how does that work between you two?
Yeah, I mean, so we are quite opposite in the way we write in our process, I should say, which is actually really helpful. So I'm a rewriter, which means basically I get something on the page quite quickly, it's rough as guts, and then I kind of work it and smooth it out and do a lot of rewrites until it's kind of at a place where I'm happy with. Dave, on the other hand, takes him a long time to get anything out on the page, but when it does, it's like fully formed because he kind of does a lot of that processing in his mind, whereas I do the processing on the page. So our kind of little hack is that I do the first draft. So I'm first boots on the ground. I get something to him, and then he kind of massages it and brings the polish. So I write the first and usually like first and second draft of all the scripts, and then Dave comes in for the cleanup, I guess you could call it, and really makes it shine and kind of brings it all together. In particular, I mean, I'm very big picture in the way I think. Dave is really good at kind of making each scene pop in a way that I can't. So between the two of us, I think we have a really good way of filling in each other's blind spots and gaps.
So we're currently on issue 2, looking to launch, you said Tuesday?
Yeah, so we're launching Tuesday around 8 p.m. EST. So we're, I'm obviously based in Australia with the accent, but we're really targeting US market. So we're launching at 8 p.m. EST Tuesday.
So, I mean, how many issues are you guys looking at altogether for the series?
So it's a 5-issue mini. I just maybe like a month ago finished writing issue 3, so it's with David at the moment for that final polish. So it's 5 issues. We're planning them all through Kickstarter. It's all mapped out. So we're hoping to launch issue 3 later in the year and then finish the series off next year. So we're trying to be mindful of the fact that we kind of, with Kickstarter, the production timelines on comics, you just can't do it every month. There's a bit of more of a wait between issues, but we're trying to be really mindful of the fact that we want to give our audience a cohesive experience that happens in a reasonable time frame. We don't want them waiting years between issues.
No, I love that. I love that. So real quick, before we begin wrapping up, right here is the link to sign up for the pre-launch. You'll get notified as soon as they go live. Are there going to be any early bird specials, or can you maybe give us a price for the digital and the physical?
Yeah, 100%. So we're doing the digital deluxe version for about $5 cheaper than what it will be after the first 24 hours. So the digital deluxe version, it'll obviously get you issues 1 and 2 digital, but the really cool thing that we're throwing in that's exclusive to that digital tier is where I'm doing what we're calling the artist edition of issue 1, which is basically going to be the full issue, but just fills inks, all lettered. So it'll be a new way for people who've read the first issue to re-experience it. So we're really excited about that. And then the other thing we're doing is we've obviously got a discounted physical for the second issue. And then the other early bird thing we're doing, we're really pushing Shane's cover for this issue because we just love it. So this is the first Kickstarter where we're doing an early bird for Shane's variant as well. So we've got 2 variants this time around. Shane's variant, which we've just revealed tonight, and then we've got one from another partner in crime of mine, Beck Kubrick, who of course did the art on the Rick and Morty issue with me. So Beck
that's
and I,
awesome.
Beck and I also do a book called Meat for Burgers together, but they did the cover. We've teased it, but we haven't fully revealed it yet, but it is amazing. So that's going to be the second variant. It's going to be available. But in terms of early bird, it's that Shane variant that we're dishing up for a discounted price. We're just so in love with that variant. We want to give everyone, a cheaper way of accessing it, because we do get that, particularly in Kickstarter projects, the variant tiers can be a little bit price prohibitive sometimes. So we're trying to counteract that the best we can.
I love that. So with that being said, it is time for us to begin wrapping up. Always a pleasure to get you on the show. I do want to ask you 2 questions in particular. You know the drill. So I think this time around, let's talk a little bit about, when you started, you said a lot of this has been in works for years. So for any writer or artist out there, I guess, like in that process where they're just like, pitching, they're working, and they're waiting for their work to come to fruition, maybe they're feeling a little defeated. What would be some advice you could offer them to kind of just like, hold their head up high and work through that?
100%. I think, and this is something I struggle with as well, is in publishing, you don't have a lot of control. You don't have control over if stuff gets picked up, really, in the sense that, right, you can make, unfortunately, the quality of the work and the quality of the pitches you're putting out there aren't the full equation. There are plenty of incredible pitches that get passed on just because the vibes are off or the timing isn't right. There's only a couple of reasons why a company would greenlight a project and millions of reasons why they won't. And most of them aren't related to the quality of your pitch. So I think focus on what you can control. And by that, I mean, so instead of, I used to set goals around like in the new year, I want 5 or, like X amount of projects picked up. And I've changed that to, no, I'm going to produce X amount of pitches. Because I can't control how many projects get picked up, but I can control how many pitches I make. So that would be my suggestion is focus on what you can control. Focus on the work. And I think the most important thing to remember is it's a war of attrition, right? As soon as something gets rejected, you figure out, is there anywhere else I can send it? And if not, you move on to the next thing. It really is about just, I think the mark of a true writer is you are able to be like, to lay a project to rest and then move on to the next thing. And it's that war of attrition that we all feel. You've just kind of got to keep at it and figure out what you need to be able to keep doing it.
I love that. And I think, perception and, the perspective, view you have of it is the biggest thing you could offer yourself. If you hold yourself to 5 pitches and you get struck out 3, you're going to feel defeated. You're going to not want to do it. It's going to push you away. But if, coming up with 5 scripts, like that's on you. You can knock that out in a year, right? 100%. Like, so it's just,
100%. I think something really like a writer I really look up to, Dennis Camp, who did 20th Century Men at Image, right? That book came out, and it's an incredible book, getting rave reviews. But if you look at and that book's now led to him doing, Marvel and DC work. So it's easy to view it as like, he had this Image book, he's blown up. But like, he's been doing this for like a decade before that book's come out. He's been pitching endlessly. He's been working tirelessly, and with a lot of amazing books that nobody noticed, that in his own words, nobody cared about what he did for 10 years. And now, so it's like, it's easy to be like, he's blowing up. But like, no, he was slogging it away. And then things have now, lined up and people have realized what amazing work he's putting out. But there was like, that 10-year slog. So I think it's so important to remember that perception versus the reality. It's easy to look like an overnight success, but a lot of the time the reality is people have been doing it for, 5-10 years. I mean, I'm coming up on my 10 years of taking comics seriously. So it's a long process. And when you see someone, having announcements and sharing new projects, those were years in the making.
I love that. And all you got to do is just keep at it. So with that being said, let's wrap it up and, let's chop it up a little bit. What have you been playing? What have you been reading? What have you been watching? What are you doing outside of creating?
Totally. I haven't gamed in a little bit. I haven't video gamed either. I played this amazing, I'm really obsessed with it. It's a TCG called Flesh and Blood. So it's kind of, I played Magic for about 15 years. Not 15 years, sorry. 15 years ago, I played Magic for about 5 years. And I know I kind of, in the end, got sick of the churn and the cost of the game.
Oh my God. It's so expensive to be competitive, right? Like,
well, because I was an idiot and played Standard, and Standard is so expensive. Yeah. So I kind of got into Flesh and Blood, and so many of the people who play the game are ex-Magic people who kind of got sick of the churn of Magic. And the game certainly, has expensive cards, and there's an investment cost involved, like all TCGs. but cards don't cycle out as quickly, so it's much more financially sustainable. And the thing I really love about it is that it's made by this company in New Zealand called Legend Story Studios, and all they do is flesh and blood. The guy who runs it, James White, is an ex-Magic player, and you sold a bunch of his Magic collection to make the company, which is now valued at millions. And the game is amazing. The gameplay is really innovative, and I'm just obsessed with this TCG. And
That's
the
so
community
cool.
is wonderful. So, if you're like myself, kind of got burnt out on Magic, I can't recommend Flesh and Blood enough. I think it's an incredible game, and I love it so much. So that's kind of been what a lot of my gaming time has been playing, that either online or and I also play in store as well. So that's been a lot of fun.
What about TV shows and books or comics or anything?
So, great question. So TV shows, my partner just got me into Luther, which is a British TV. It's like a messed up detective show starring Idris Elba. So it was kind of like the series 1 of Luther is what blew him up and made him kind of a global superstar. So I started watching that. And then the other show we started watching was Yellow Jackets, which I hadn't seen. So we watched the first season of that. Such a good show.
Yeah, I've been diving into Chainsaw Man. I started reading.
Man.
I started reading the manga. I want to say beginning of January, and then I'm up to. I just got volume 12, so I've read 11 volumes since then. I got hooked, and then I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna dive into the anime. It's the first time I've ever read the manga before the show. I feel cool.
That's incredible. Yeah.
Love it. And then what is it? Jujutsu Kaisen is another one I've started watching recently. I'm up to episode like 30 or 35 or something, and that show's really good too. Like, I don't know what it is, like all the anime that just was popular when it came out, I just did not like have time to watch. And like Demon Slayer was another one. I almost said Dragon Slayer, but Demon Slayer is another one I had the opportunity to go through and watch, and just missed out on so much good stuff out there.
Speaking of anime, have you checked out Delicious in Dungeon?
No, but I'm always up for new ones.
It's really good. I'm pretty like, I don't watch a lot of anime. It's just not, for the most part, I just don't vibe with a lot of it for whatever personal reasons. But Delicious in Dungeon is amazing. It's just like a cooking show meets D&D basically, and it's really chill to watch. And it just it's
that's amazing. The one thing I love about anime and manga is just like how they come up with the most craziest ideas and just run with it.
I mean, a lot of the premises are so inventive and interesting and seem antithetical. Like, oh, it's a dungeon crawler show, but it's not about dungeon crawling; it's about cooking. But yet, it sounds like, well, how would that be interesting? But it is. It's amazing.
You just gotta watch it.
100%.
So with that being said, it is time for us to wrap up. Everyone watching, right here is the link. Sign up for the pre-launch. Let's hit 100 before they go live next Tuesday. That being said, it's time for us to end it. I hope you all have a fantastic day, but most importantly,